Well, let us prepare ourselves. If you prepare yourself at home and put your hand over your eyes, I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today. And now over your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today. And now if you just extend out your arms, I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today. The spiritual truth that I'm going to talk about today is actually attributed to Lord Buddha. And it is this. He said this after his enlightenment. No one saves ourselves but ourselves. We ourselves must walk the path. No one saves us but ourselves. We ourselves must walk the path. Today we're in the first week of what's become a tradition here at December tradition here at CSA, celebrating the light that you are through the teachings of many, many paths who celebrate light during this time of year, celebrate hope, celebrate a return of hope in our lives. Now, here's the thing. We're not trying to be those traditions. We're going to talk about the universal wisdom that is alive in all of them, but we will look at those teachings through the eyes of science of mind. Today is the Buddhist holiday of the Buddha's enlightenment called Bodhi Day. It's actually not happening today, but because we celebrate all of these holidays, I have to kind of fit them in where I can. Next week, we're going to celebrate the spiritual wisdom of Hanukkah as shared with us by our guest speaker, Rabbi Seth Castleman. And then we'll celebrate winter solstice. And after that, Christmas with a message from Reverend Rick and an added celebration on Christmas Eve with a short message from me. And then Kwanzaa with a message from Reverend Brenda. So today we're looking at the path of spiritual wisdom available to us in Buddhism. Specifically, like I say, in the celebration of Bodhi Day, the anniversary of the Buddha's enlightenment, which is on December 8th. As with all of our holidays, we always prepare an altar. My thanks to Rosemary Mayfield, who came out from COVID sheltering in place yesterday to make this beautiful altar. And I would like to invite now our praise team, Ayana Kaburi, up to do the blessing.
May we be in peace. May our hearts remain open. May we awaken to the light, which is our true nature. May we be a source of healing for all beings. May we be in peace.
Thank you. Thank you. And before we go any farther, let me just welcome Busha, Sheila, Kendra, Christine, Connie, Rosemarie, Phil, Marva, Jill, Neil, Daniel, and Irene. We're so glad you're here with us here this morning. So, like I say, this is the anniversary of the Buddha's enlightenment. But we want to be careful here because, as I say every year when we do this holiday, Buddha did not become enlightened in one day. And you won't become enlightened in one day either. So let's go to some Buddhist basics. I want to get back to the basics of Buddhism to help us on this journey, which is a journey to enlightenment. Like many of us on the planet, the most celebrated Buddha was Siddhartha Gautama, and he wasn't living his authentic life. And doesn't that feel true sometimes for us when we just don't feel good in our body, we don't feel good in our life, and we think, I'm not living my authentic life. So it was with Siddhartha, and his soul said, look, there's got to be more to life than this. He wasn't talking about a new souped-up chariot. He wasn't talking about a mansion or a vacation in a beautiful spot. He had all of those things and more. He was a prince, and he was afforded all of the luxuries of a prince. And that, while that might seem like enough for those of us who are without things right now, everything we want, things will not bring us happiness. Life without things can bring sadness. And at this church, we want you to have all of the things that you want. We think that's very spiritual. We understand that when you get them, those things are not what will make you happy. Your soul doesn't care what things you have. It cares what feelings you have. And your feelings come from your thoughts, not from your things. Your consciousness determines whether you wake up happy or sad, not people, places, or things. So to insist with a higher consciousness, that one that will bring us happiness, Buddha suggested that if we learn these 4 noble truths, he called them the noble truths, to live by, and here they are. Noble truth number 1 is, there is suffering in this life. Now we mix that up sometimes. Sometimes people think all life is suffering. That's not what the Buddha said. He said there is suffering in this life. And we don't need the Buddha to tell us that. We don't need anybody standing on a pulpit to tell us that. We see what's happening with COVID in our life. We see with what's happening with racism in our life. I was saddened to see another 15-year-old black kid killed in Oregon day before yesterday simply for playing his music too loud. And somebody thought that was a good enough reason to shoot him. We can see that there's suffering from the fractured electorate that we have going on right now. Some of us have discord in our family life, and that's causing us suffering. Great Mother Earth herself is crying out for us to end the suffering of climate change. So yeah, there is suffering. Number 2, noble truth. All suffering comes from attachment to having things the way we want them, when we want them, how we want them. Now, you know what? This can be a little confusing in a New Thought church. Because here in Science of Mind, we say, you haven't lived until you have figured out how to have things the way you want them, when you want them, and how you want them. We hold classes in that subject. We hold seminars here to help you understand how to manifest. We hold prayer sessions and all kinds of things to help you get skilled in the area of manifestation, of having things the way you want them, when you want them. So many people misunderstood this second noble truth to mean that you shouldn't want things, that we shouldn't long for deep and intimate connections with people, places, and things, because if we lose them, we'll be sad. And yes, you will be sad for a while if you lose contact with the forms of your desire. But isn't that far better than having no desire? Having no intimate contacts with people? Having no things that you want? Isn't that better than living a life being fearful and cold and distant and keeping people away because you're protecting yourself from attachment? There will be times of sadness. There will be times of grief. And it will be a result of your attachment to a person, to a place, or to a thing. That's why we're in spiritual community, to help each other grieve when it's appropriate. That's why you come to church. That's why you come to CSA, to get in classes and involved in ministries, to bond with one another so we can support you. And it's harder during COVID, but we have created enough vehicles for us still to keep connected. There should be nobody going through sadness, nobody going through grief without touching in with one of the ministers or the practitioners of this church or each other during the noon Zoom calls. Third noble truth, that there is a way to stop suffering. Now again, notice that Buddha did not say to prevent suffering. There's a way to stop suffering when it happens, and still be connected to deep levels with people and things that you want in your life. Fourth noble truth, that way, the path to end all suffering is called the Eightfold Path. The first of the Eightfold Path is called right view. Learn to live by one of our 4 foundational beliefs that I say every single Sunday here at CSA. That's right view, when you can do that. There are so many ways that we could look at right view, this teaching. Our common wisdom is to train ourselves to look at the world as it is, not as we are. But it's not always helpful wisdom. If we look at the world today, we see leaders fighting. We see the unemployment rate alarmingly high. We see people who are hungry in our life, and a pandemic that's killed more than 260,000 Americans. Right view is to hold a picture of life better than that, greater than that. Right view is to see everybody working in your mind. Right view is to visualize everyone wearing a mask, washing their hands, and honoring this request that we not gather in big groups during the winter holidays. Right view is to hold on to the absolute truth that a loving and abundant God is in charge. Now, I want to just add a little bit to this that it could make it even more confusing. I am reading in the newspapers these days that Norman Vincent Peale is taking a beating because he promoted positive thinking. And President Trump is touting him by saying, I will not accept defeat of the election because I believe in Norman Vincent Peale and I believe in positive thinking. I've always been a positive person in my life. I appreciate that he thinks that, but here's what if I were channeling Norman Vincent Peale, here's what I'd say to him. Look, Donald, you lost. Clear out your desk and leave. But don't leave as a defeated person. You say you're defeated in the election, but you're not defeated as a human being. We never are. We can't be, because we are the presence of God on the planet. The second of the Eightfold Path is right intention. Now, I almost don't have to talk about right intention because I do it so often. Nothing new can happen in your life without intention. So let me say it again. Nothing new can happen in your life without intention. Oh, but Reverend Georgia, I never expected such and such to happen. Yes, you did. You might have expected it in your subconscious and not been aware of it, but nothing new can happen in your life without intention. But Lord Buddha takes us even a little deeper. I say, live with intention. Lord Buddha says, live with right intention. Not good intention, not bad intention, because we don't deal in good and bad here. But we do deal in success and failure. Live with successful intention. Intention that is in harmony with spirit. See, wanting to make $100,000 without ever working a day in your life is actually right intention. Wanting to have $100,000 and not work in your life because you stole it from somebody else is not right intention. Now, you might get $100,000, but you will not be happy as a result. Third is right speech. Right speech. In other words, talk nice, mostly to yourself. Stop using words that put you down. You and everyone you know are representations of God, and every time you put yourself or somebody else down, you just put God down. One of the wisdoms of AA is to develop what is called restraint of tongue and pen. That's right speech. Developing restraint of tongue and pen. Think before you talk. Think before you say something or write something down. And finally, within this one is ask yourself, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? What am I about to say? What am I about to respond to? Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? The fourth is right action, which simply means action that supports oneness and love. When people say, I don't really know what the right thing to do is here, they can simply test it against this wisdom. Is it in harmony with oneness? Is it in harmony with love? Now, be careful. This does not mean you're becoming a doormat or doing something you don't feel comfortable with. Sometimes the clearest right action is to take a powder. The simply right action is to remove yourself, but not in a huff. I'll give you a hint in staying in right action. It is always deliberate. It is never reactive. 5 is right livelihood. There are many moral implications of this wisdom, but I want to stay within our teaching, which is not morality. I want to stay within the teaching that would suggest that right livelihood is one in which is congruent with your desire and your skills. If you're an engineer and you want to be a dancer, begin the transition now. If you're a bus driver and you want to be a nurse, begin making the transition now. Don't waste this precious life you have by not being in right livelihood. I say begin making the transition because there is nothing wrong with taking a lesser job in this economy as you begin your transition. We can take a page from our immigrant sisters and brothers who came to this country with advanced degrees and took jobs as janitors, not with bitterness, but because they knew this is a transition time. Number 6 is right livelihood. Whatever you're doing that's helping you, make sure you keep doing it. If you're in recovery, go to meetings. They're harder on Zoom for some of us, but we have to go anyway. Some of us like it better. If you signed up for a class here, log on to it. Right effort is in the Buddha's Eightfold Path because we're great starters, but we're not such great finishers. Now, it's true. If you can't finish something without starting, so that's important. But equally important is having the perseverance to stick with your desire when it gets tough. There are hundreds of what Reverend Rick calls people with overcomer stories about and organizations and grassroots movements. And those people and organizations and grassroots movements were only successful because they persevered. Dr. Seuss wrote his first book was rejected by 23 publishers, but he kept sending it out. He persevered. And the 24th publisher sold 6 million copies. Colin Kaepernick was vilified by many people, including the management of the NFL. But he kept kneeling. He kept speaking out. He kept inviting other athletes in all of the sports to join him. And now many, including myself, see him as one of the major catalysts in bringing discussions of the horrors of racism to the forefront. Make a commitment to yourself and don't let anyone or anything get in your way. Number 7, right mindfulness is for us a lot like for right view, the first one, but it's a little different. Right mindfulness asks us to be present in our own body. Our body has so much to teach us every day about our reactions and about reactivity and how it can be stopped. You know, we can't let our body and our mind wander to revenge or be in a state of reactivity. How many of us have said things we wished never had come out of our mouth? When that happens, we're not being mindful. We're not minding our mind or our mouth. Sometimes families and business partnerships end up in really long estrangements because we have not mastered this wisdom called right mindfulness. The final one, right concentration. Stay focused. Begin a meditation practice. Now look, I've said this before. People say, I just can't sit still, Reverend George. I just can't sit still. I can't stop my mind. If you can't really sit still, meaning that you have never go to a movie and sit through an entire movie without running around. You never watch TV program for the whole time without getting up and wandering around. You never read a book for 20 minutes at a stretch. You never sit at your computer being mesmerized by your Facebook news feed for sometimes up to hours. If you absolutely can't sit still, begin a walking meditation practice. Right concentration is learned, and it will be a great help in understanding that nothing real can be taken from you in your life. Lord Buddha is one of the amazing teachers. You know, sometimes people ask me, is Jesus a personal savior to you? And I always answer, yes, Jesus is a personal savior to me. And Buddha is a personal savior to me. And Lao Tzu is a personal savior to me. Not because I think any of them are come down and snatch the problems out of my life, although I wish that were true. but because of the teachings that they leave us. But we have to sit with them. We have to evaluate how we're doing with them. So I encourage you, you can Google these these 4 Noble Truths and Eightfold Path and look at them. I invite you to sit down and take time this week to really see how you're doing with all of them. Do they make sense for you? Are there some areas in your life that you could improve? Simply by being aware, more aware of this Eightfold Path. Let's take this message into prayer, knowing that there is a power for good in the universe, and it's one I can use. I can use it to spread more love. I can use it to take better care of my body and my mind. I can use it to pray for people. I can use this power for good that anybody can use. I give thanks for that. I give thanks to the Great One for always saying, yes, I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.